You're entering Corsi Nation.
This is Jerome Corsi, and today it is Tuesday. It's August 5th, 2025. Thanks for joining us on CorsiNation.com, and you can follow us on X at CorsiJerome1, number 1, and JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. That's where I'm doing Substacks almost every day now. I want to start out today with more on this Russiagate. Tulsi Gabbard says she's going to go to a grand jury now, which is escalating the case into possible criminal charges, which could deal with Brennan, Hillary Clinton, Clapper, who was head of director of national intelligence. These are figures that are going to be examined at least. But what's coming out now, and I think some of the new information coming out recasts this. We're going to be dealing with a whistleblower we've dealt with before in the past. We've been dealing with Boris. Well, Boris is back. That's from the old Corsi Nation show. But what's happening here is a realization that the entire Russian collusion hoax was concocted largely by Hillary Clinton, but it was also a combination of Clinton and Obama. And that we're learning that Russia really favored Hillary Clinton to win because Russia had dirt on Hillary they were going to dump after the election to discredit her. But this interview is particularly interesting, and I want to play it. Let's play it right now, Chris. It is an interview that was done by NTD Television, the American Thought Leaders. And let's play a little bit of it, and I want to comment on it. But we're hearing one of the officials here who was involved in the intelligence community assessment that essentially saying that Russia stole the emails, which was a key turning point in this whole narrative about Russian collusion, the conclusion that Russia stole the emails. When in fact, I think it's pretty widely known that Russia didn't steal the emails. It was too quick a steal, the time that was involved, and now analysis of the metadata involved in the actual steal itself showed that it had to have been done by somebody who put a thumb drive or a device inside the computer, the Democratic National Computer server that held the emails, and downloaded them very quickly. But let's hear what he's saying here. Chris, want to start playing it?
So you were actually one of the people that assessed this intelligence community assessment from the side of DOD, as I understand it, that recently we've been hearing about, that Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, publicized recently.
Yeah, I think it's page 74, 75 of my first book, The Nation Will Follow. 2 days after the election in 2016, I was called up on the NSA phone. The person said I had to be on the intelligence community assessment that was assembling to finalize the Russia narrative, because we were going to prove that Trump was a Russian asset and we were going to delay or block the inauguration of Donald J. Trump for the first term. I just couldn't believe it.
This is what you were told?
This is what I was told on the phone. So this was a deep state coup from the beginning, that it actually started in early 2016.
Okay, we can stop.
We went
it
through
right
the
there
process in November.
Stop it there, Chris. What he's saying here is important, in that we're learning here that this official who wrote a book about what his experience was, and the book was called Follow the Nation. He's John Mills. He's a retired colonel. And he was saying that in 2016, he was called on the phone and said he had to be on the phone for this intelligence agency meeting. And the intelligence agencies were going to concur unanimously that Russia stole the emails. They said he had to be on the phone, and he had to be there, and he had to agree that this was going to be the conclusion. So what he's saying is it was a coup d'etat because he wasn't given any choice. It wasn't a real assessment. He wasn't being asked his opinion. He was being told what he had to conclude. Now that's altogether different. He's being told what he had to conclude, then it was a predetermined conclusion, which was a political conclusion, And that's how the entire Russian collusion got set up. Let's play a little bit more. Go ahead, Chris.
Final product came out in the first few days of January 2017. But bottom line, the supposed top secret review, there was nothing there to show that Russia was trying to manipulate the campaign or the outcome of the election in the favor of Donald J. Trump, that the Trump campaign was somehow colluding with Russia. There was no evidence of anything. So when the document, the Intel Community Assessment, came back to the Department of Defense, because that's what happens in these reviews, the team members, the document, the final end product goes back to all the departments and agencies for review and finalization and approval. When it came back, my recommendation was non-concur. There was no evidence to support any of these assertions. And I was told, John, stand down. No, you don't need to complete the staffing. The secretary, which is Ash Carter, who's dead now, had already signed off because Comey and Brennan were personally hands on keyboard writing this assessment.
Okay, let's stop there.
Trump, we're trying to influence.
Okay, so it was predetermined by Comey and Brennan this was going to be the conclusion. There was no, Mills wanted to say, no, I don't concur. You don't have my agreement. But yet it was predetermined by Brennan and Comey that regardless of whether he concurred or not, or anyone concurred or not, this was going to be the conclusion. So if he didn't agree they told him basically, shut up. Don't make any deal about this. Now, this again is the whole idea of a hoax is that the nation we went for months on Russian collusion. I mean, I think I'll go down to my library and pull up a whole stack of books that came out in 2016, 2017, 2018 about all of this that goes on and on and on with this Russian assessment. The Russians stole the emails when, in fact, there was no evidence for this. Okay, let's play the conclusion here. Let's hear how he wraps it up.
Influence the election, and that there was a form of collusion going on between the Trump campaign and Russia. Shows the bizarre nature of the Soviet era psyche still permeating through the Russians.
Okay, so in other words, he's attributing it to the fact that this hostility towards the Soviet Union persists against Russia. And I've maintained that the Democrats turned against Russia. They loved Russia when it was communist. They turned against Russia when it had the Berlin Wall came down and Russia renounced communism. At that moment in history, the Democrats turned against Russia because it was no longer communist. Okay, but the point is here that the damage done by this statement is enormous because the country was put through. This was the entire first term of President Trump was taken up through 2016 through 2018 into 2019. It was March 2019 before the Mueller investigation was closed. It was closed largely because they couldn't get me to take a plea deal, and I had the evidence that Assange, and I had not contacted Assange, and Assange was believed to have gotten the emails from the Russians who stole the emails from the Democrats. And that's what this whole thing was about, who stole the emails and what was Russia doing trying to interfere in the election. And Donald Trump was supposed to have been colluding with Russia. The whole thing was concocted. Okay, now that's the case. You have a cabal within the White House led by Obama, who is in the process of trying to overturn a duly elected president. It's really treason. But yet some of these people are just going to be brought forward for lying to Congress. That's going to be their only offense. They're going to be able to say, no, we were just doing our job. We did the assessment. We thought we had the evidence. They're going to lie about that. But in fact, why this is so damaging is because this testimony shows that, in fact, there was no honest assessment going on. Okay, now, Chris, I want you to come on. I want to talk about this back and forth with you for a second, because I think this is one of the key points that we've been at. I mean, this is pivotal because for all the entire time, Donald Trump's first term, the issue that he was in bed with Russia was the major theme that was pounded on the news media every night. Chris?
It never made sense from the beginning anyway. If you're watching these news reports, they always brought this up without evidence. And I can go into that rabbit hole for a long time. The idea is even a casual observer would be looking at this saying, why would any nation, any adversarial nation want Donald Trump as their opposing president? Or sitting across the negotiating table with them. They'd want somebody they can work with. They'd have a lot of dirt on. They have to. They'd be able to manipulate, and maybe with somebody with the, let's just say, same mode of thinking, if you will. And the reason being, hey, look, the man was former. The man isn't former KGB. He is KGB. Okay, that's it. So we cannot forget that while Putin did help overthrow the Soviets, he's still KGB. He knows who the easier adversary, the more manipulatable adversary would be, and that would be Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump was unpredictable, didn't know what he'd do. He's probably liable to figure out how to bankrupt Russia, and didn't want that to happen. So a casual observer can tell that. This is why a lot of us knew the Russiagate hoax was phony to begin with.
It was phony to begin with, and yet, with the news media pounding it every single day and concocting stories on it every single day, I think I'll go down and pull down. I will get the stack of books up for tomorrow's podcast, and we'll read some of this stuff.
Yes,
because it was so fervent and so determined, and had to be true. And the Russians were influencing Donald Trump, and the truth was, Russia and Putin wanted Hillary to win, because they thought they could control Hillary better than they could control Trump. And in fact, I think that would have been true. It largely, I think we're going to find out, and this is, again, some of the revelations we're about to make, is that Obama, Brennan, and Clapper were, in fact, working with Russia and were the agents working with Russia. Okay, now, getting this information across to the American people, in remembering what even it was, 2019 is now 6 years ago, which is kind of hard to imagine. We've been through 4 years of Biden.
It seemed like 12.
Yeah.
You bring across a
24.
great point. Yeah, you bring across a great point. A lot of people are saying, well, we have an economy to fix.
Yeah. Why are we worried about this old stuff they're going to be saying?
Right. But treason is something we have to look at. Because
Well, I would think so. I mean,
this is how the Democrats are going to govern in the future.
Okay, well, let's talk about how the Democrats are going to govern in the future. Let's talk about what's going on in Texas. Okay, because in Texas, you've got now the Democrats are leaving the state. They're going to go to Chicago. They're going to hide behind Pritzker, who's, rather hefty.
Yeah, I guess they could.
Yeah, well,
where are they going to put all their cats, though?
Some of the Democrats are kind of hefty, too. Take a look at some of these Democrats who are going to Chicago. The reason being that they think that they can avoid a gerrymandering plan, which would give some seats in the legislature to Republicans. And this has been the big deal with gerrymandering, which has now become an art. Okay, so this under Eric Holder, this really got going, where they were drawing these bizarre districts in order to. Here's, for instance, Florida. How they've drawn districts in Florida.
This is in Illinois, actually.
Oh, Illinois. That's Illinois. That's Illinois. Okay, that's Illinois right there.
Mm-hmm.
And what they've done is they're drawing districts here to say that to make sure that one party or the other wins that district. So you get these bizarre-looking districts, and with the bizarre-looking districts, what are you going to do? Putting this kind of a structure together is pretty ridiculous, but it doesn't matter, because the district, you think about a district as being kind of like a block or a neighborhood or some unit together that makes sense. But this is a bizarre combination of just, a twisted configuration of territory designed to make sure the Democrats or the Republicans win, and both parties play the game. So now you're seeing, and what's this Chris is showing you the Zero Hedge article on this, which is a very good article. essentially arguing that, the whole idea of the Democrats going away and not holding a vote is Abbott saying it's cowardice and dereliction of duty for the Democratic representatives to flee the state on Sunday to break a quorum, prevent a vote on the redistricting plan. And so Abbott's saying he's going to remove them from office, replace them, and pursue felony charges against them. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. Do you, Chris? I mean, it's a threat, but it's not going to happen. That's, I think, clear. Okay. And when we see these kinds of too much, well, and it's politically not tenable. I mean, again, he would be risking his own political future to do something like this. Okay, now, when we see this going on, we realize again how our politics have become so contentious. The other article that caught my attention here was an article that I believe was up on Discern Report today, saying that essentially the Democratic Party, Americans are seeing the Democratic brand as complete garbage. Okay. That's pretty strong language, but again, I'll give you the article here, Chris, so you can show it. Here we are, complete garbage. And I want to read a little bit of this article because it's written by Jason Cohen of the Daily Caller News Foundation. And he's saying that data and CNN's chief data analyst, Harry Enton, said Friday the Americans currently perceive the Democratic brand as atrocious based on recent polling. Okay, that's CNN saying this. So the Wall Street Journal, CNN, and Gallup have all found the Democratic Party is record low favorability. Well, no kidding. Democrats at this point are historically divided. It's a complete and utter mess. It is messier than a hoarder's basement, Enton said. What are we talking about here? So the national poll saying the Democrats are only polling at about 25%. Okay, now, this is the kind of low numbers that mean the party has got no message that is resonating with Americans. Okay, so when you take a look at, the Clinton and Biden and going back to Al Gore, the Democratic Party has had some terrible candidates for president. The Obama was really the only one that drew any true excitement. So the Democratic Party's net favorable record lows in all three. The Wall Street Journal 30 points underwater, CNN 26 points, Gallup 26 points underwater. And that's being driven in large part by discontent within the Democratic base. People have no idea what the Democratic Party really stands for. Well, what does it stand for? It stands for cheating in elections. It stands for supporting, MS-13 gangs that are illegally here. It's for a whole bunch of things that don't really add up to any real substantive benefit for the American people. If the Democrats want to have illegal immigration, they want to have criminals in the streets, defund the police, and they're running a Muslim Marxist for mayor of New York, I mean, this party has no viable future. And so the Democratic Party is committing suicide. As far as I'm concerned, they can't be fast enough for me that they commit suicide because they become a Marxist party, and they become a Marxist party that is now actually anti-American and wanting to destroy the nation. Okay, let's move on to some international politics. The international political situation, the EU is in complete turmoil right now. And the EU is suffering tremendous budget problems, which are likely to come to roost in the fall. At the same time, you're seeing a situation where Russia is now becoming more and more aggressive. Russia is saying now they can put intermediate missiles, nuclear missiles, wherever they want to put them. And they're deploying them on short and medium range missiles in the Pacific region. And Denmark's raised the threat level with Russia. saying Russia could likely invade. So we're not getting anywhere with the Ukraine war being solved. In fact, Russia's just taking more and more territory. And there's no way to stop Russia from taking more territory short of a nuclear war. Okay, so the entire nature of the global economy is precarious at the moment. And when you take a look at what's going on with gold and silver, okay, so gold and silver right now, let's just take a look at the prices today. So you got gold and silver in the spot market. Let me just take a quick look. Let's see. I want to just pull up one of the indexes here. Here we go. Gold is, no, I'm having trouble finding. Here we go. Gold is at $3,376 an ounce. And silver's at $37.74 an ounce. Now, people say, well, I can't afford gold. I can't buy $3,370. I can't even buy an ounce of gold. I don't have $3,000. Well, buy silver. And look at Swiss America. Swiss America will take your IRAs, which probably have more money in it. You can be a self-directed IRA, and you can buy some gold in your self-directed IRA and hold it in the depository. Or you can get some silver. Now, for new-time customers for Swiss America, you can get this one-time offer of up to 250 of these Walking Liberty half dollars. Okay, so and basically what they're worth in the cost of them. So if you become a customer, you want to take advantage of this one-time offer, you could get some silver at pretty reasonable prices. These 250 of these coins. And the idea then is at least you've got some precious metal that is going to increase in value and its purchasing power is going to increase rather than having just dollars which are deteriorating in their purchasing power. If you call the 800 number, you can get a copy of the free book, How's Coming Global Crash is Going to Cause an Historic Gold Rush. It's happening. Gold was at under $2,000 an ounce last year. And today, it's looking it's going up to maybe $4,000 an ounce. Call the toll-free number, 1-800-519-6268. 1-800-519-6268. And get a copy of How the Coming Global Crash Will Create an Historic Gold Rush. But do think about buying some silver. At least you can get some precious metals to diversify your money holdings. Okay, let's go to one or two more stories covered quickly before we wrap up. We're seeing now on the home market that home sellers are outnumbering home buyers by the most in a decade, especially in the Southwest and Southeast. Now, that's interesting because what's happening is that people selling their homes, obviously, many cases are wanting to downsize or having trouble paying the mortgage, but there's not a lot of buyers out there at these inflated prices. The market is inflated in general by the dollar increases in value. Decrease in value. The prices houses are being asked for have increased in value because the house essentially, to maintain the what you put into the house in terms of purchasing power. So one of the unusual parts about gold is that the amount of gold that would buy a house decades ago is about the same amount of gold that will buy a house today. But decades ago, you get a house well under $50,000. Today, good luck. Today, in most markets, you could be paying, $500,000 for a home anywhere. And for a decent home, people are now paying millions of dollars. And the building market has turned to producing these apartments or these townhouses where people are no longer going to have a single-family house. That's the standalone single-family house. You might own a townhouse, but that's going to be it. And that's fundamental change in the standard of living of the American people, where we have over decades so eroded our economy with this increasing deficit, now $37 trillion, that we're even paying the interest on this is $1 trillion a year. So the middle class of the United States is under duress, and is diminishing. As that happens, the country becomes less stable. The administration, the Trump's administration is the first administration, maybe in 50 years, we've had negative net migration because we're actually going after deporting the illegals. And that's being resisted by the Democrats. Democrats' ideas, every single idea the Democrats have been bad. Climate change, because we're burning hydrocarbon fuels. So we'll stop burning hydrocarbon fuels. Therefore, we stop having a robust economy. Because the cost of wind and solar are higher and they're not stable. And electric car vehicles are not the future. We spent billions of dollars and we didn't build very many recharging stations. The fact is, a lot of the money the federal government is spending is getting stolen. Started with Solyndra and other things of that nature, where Obama paid off his campaign contributors with big grants to do wind and solar. And when they failed, nobody went to jail. They were just bankrupt. And they written off and forgotten about. So the economic situation we're in right now is one that's precarious. And the international situation is not improving. Israel is now deciding that they're going to have a permanent military occupation of the Gaza. There's no possible way they can let the Palestinians back in. The Palestinians get back in, Hamas is back in, and we're right at the same situation where we started. And a lot of Donald Trump's ideas have just now stalling in the summer. We're not getting the gold passports that he promised. Someone who could put $5 million into the United States would be able to get a gold passport and come to the United States as a citizen. That's not happening. The program has not been implemented. We're still having a lot of the appointments for the Trump administration not yet made. It goes on and on and on. And what we're seeing here is a situation in which we are languishing in the summer months. Hopefully September will come back and things will get going. But right at the moment, we're in a doldrums, as they say in sailing terms, where the wind isn't blowing, the ship isn't moving. Chris, why don't you come back on for a minute? We'll make a couple of comments, but I just want to kind of bounce off you that this kind of month in August is a month when everybody's on vacation and the news cycle is very slow.
Yes. Congress is generally at a session these months. August during baseball season is called the dog days. That's when teams, and believe me, the way the Mets and Yankees have been playing the last 3, 4, 5 weeks.
I'll tell you,
it's
been tough to watch.
Well, it's funny. The Mets had a 7-game winning streak, but it was sandwiched around on a 4-game losing streak and a current stretch where they're 6-game losing streak or 4. I don't remember one, and then the current stretch where they've lost 4 out of 5. This is not good.
It's just not good. And I mean, the Yankees lost again to the Rangers last night.
They're in third. The Blue Jays are in first place right now.
Well, I think those people who hate the Yankees are probably having a good summer over this, and who hate the Mets, hate New York.
Yeah, you hate the Yankees. You don't want to see them go this way, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to see them lose at full strength, but it's just not working right now.
Well, I think the Arab, who the current managers, better look for another job pretty quickly. I think he's done. All right, let's wrap it up. In the end, God always wins. God's going to win here too. And while things sometimes look pretty dismal, and where are we going to go from here? God has always had a plan. And I encourage people in the spirit of 2 Chronicles 7:14, let's ask God to forgive us for where we've gotten. We do not need to have had so many babies killed since Roe v. Wade, God taken out of our schools, God taken out of our lives. And what we're seeing here is a need for revival, a need for coming back to God. And in the end, God will win. If this is end days, and it certainly looks like a lot of end days things going on, we'll get through it with the help of God and grace of God. We'll get through it. And it requires prayer, and it requires repentance, and it requires us being responsible for where we've let things be in our own lives and in the country. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. We will be back tomorrow. We're doing podcasts on CorsiNation.com every weekday. In the end, God always wins. Thank you for joining us. God bless.